This is the concierge, sir.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Concierge Confidential. I'm your host, Brian Ortega, and I was actually just laughing because we're in the midst of NBA trade talk, which, not gonna lie, guys, I don't care about the NBA, but Giannis Antetokounmpo just tweeted out that he's like, what did he say here? I put it, legends don't chase, they attract, and then put the video of Leonardo DiCaprio saying, I'm not leaving! And that's a funny video because my dad loves watching that clip, but I showed him the movie and he couldn't get to that part of the clip. So, people who get old also have attention issues, just like kids. So it's not an age thing. Anyways, that has nothing to do with what we're talking about in today's episode. We're actually going to be doing a solo Vegas episode. So, I've done one of these before, but I thought I'd do a little refresh on doing Vegas alone, which I think is actually one of the best cities to do alone because there's so many other people that are here for conventions and that sort of thing. So I think this is a really fun thing to do. So it'll be like where a good, like, you know, single spots to go for people. If you know, tell me because I don't. But on the Strip, good places to hang around, just kind of vibe out, just sort of watch the world go by. Shows, things that I wouldn't do alone, but maybe you would. But, you know, this is a great option for it. So we're going to be diving into all the single stuff that has to do with Las Vegas coming up next. Okay, everybody, so let's go ahead and dive into the episode. So doing Vegas solo. So it's very different than living in Vegas solo because when you live here, it's not very fun sometimes. But when you travel to Vegas alone, I know in general, traveling alone is sort of one of those things that is hard to do. I've done it. I've actually traveled to LA and San Diego alone, and those are very doable for me because there's lots of things there that I like to do, sort of like when I go to LA by myself. I love to go to the beach. It's a very nice sort of just sort of a brain cleanser. I think a lot of people feel that way about going to the beach or like the mountains, for example. But mine's the beach. I like going to the beach. Then I also love to go to the Academy Awards Museum, which to me is one of my favorite museums like on the West Coast, which I'm not going to lie, I haven't been to a lot of museums on the West Coast, but it hits all the things that I love, the Academy Awards, movies, all that good stuff. And it's in LA, which is great. Parking is terrible there, though. Parking there is absolutely horrendous. Hate having to park to go to the Academy Awards Museum. So, love going to LA, love San Diego. So many things to explore in San Diego, going outside. A lot of times when you go alone, you're walking outside a lot, I found. But in Vegas, it is quite different. I wouldn't say like coming to Vegas and walking outside is definitely high on my list, although it happens all the time. But what you should think about when coming to Vegas alone is, what are you trying to accomplish while you're here? Are you trying to relax? Are you trying to gamble? Are you trying to see shows? Are you just trying to sort of hang out, drink, and relax? I think that's totally good, phenomenal questions to ask. I think the number one thing you should understand is you should definitely not drink to excess when you're alone in Las Vegas, because it can be a very, very scary proposition, especially if you have somebody who's checking in on you, somebody who is going to be wondering like where you are. It can be very dangerous. So I don't recommend drinking to excess, but it's definitely fun to drink here because there's lots of things to do while you're drinking. So one of my number one things that I like doing, that I like about Vegas, about being, you know, solo here, is being able to go to really any restaurant you want and sit at the bar and have full dinner. You can go to some of the best restaurants in the world alone that you couldn't get a reservation for, even if you plan 3 or 4 months out. This is actually one of the best things about traveling alone in general, is that you have a lot of freedom when you travel alone. When you travel in a group, it is actually one of the hardest things to do, is because you have to plan so far ahead. A lot of people who like to fly by the seat of their pants, that's really hard to do when you're in a group because, oh, we want to go to dinner. Oh, we have to seat 6 people. That's a little bit of doing. When you're walking around solo, like this is a great example. I was able to go to Carbone Riviera. Granted, it was on a weekday, but I mean, it's actually 1-to-1. I tried to take my brother and my dad to Carbone Riviera and sit at the bar, and wasn't available. And that was also on a Tuesday. So we ended up going, and when I went alone, there were, you know, sporadic single seats at the counter. Was able to find a seat, had some dinner, beautiful time in the room, and you get to experience that whole vibe. I went with my brother and my dad, and then me. That's 3 people. it's much harder to do. And then depending on how like willing the hostess is to work with you, they're not usually very nice to people who are, a party of 3 trying to sit at the bar. Sometimes couples, that's sort of like where they put couples when they don't have a lot of 2-tops available. But we weren't able to sit there because it was 3 people, and that's, a small group. So sometimes really the best thing about being solo in Vegas is you can go to all these, wonderful restaurants. Obviously, there are a few that are even restrictive to single people, like Delilah's is one, obviously. Another one would be a lot of places at the Aria, which I have a problem with. Like they have, for example, Jean-Georges, which I wanted to dine at the steakhouse, and their bar tops are also reserved. Same thing with Carbone in the Aria as well. So it's not guaranteed, but it is one of those things where you mostly have a choice to be able to dine at the bar. I would say most places, most restaurants, are actually quite nice to sit at the bar because you typically aren't on a time limit, which usually when you sit at a table, especially in a higher end restaurant or a restaurant that's, valued a lot, you have a time limit. Usually it's about an hour and a half to 2 hours is sort of your limit, an hour and 45 usually. Like for example, when you sit down at places like Delilah, places like Mayfair Supper Club, you're on a clock. Like you have to start ordering and then start eating and all that other good stuff. And then they kick you out. When you sit at a bar, you can kind of sit there all night. For example, when I go out and I'll go to different bars, I'll tell them, my brothers ask me, they're like, how long were you sitting there? And then I said, yeah, I was there for 3 hours. Like I'm there from 7 to 10 o'clock. And they say, you sit there for 3 hours? And it's like, yeah, I do. And I don't understand how I'm able to sit there that long, but it just happens that's what I do. And I usually put myself on, a pitch clock when it comes to cocktails. I usually drink 1 cocktail per hour, which I don't like put it to a number, but I do know that, okay, I can drink 3 cocktails. That puts me at like $75, $80 plus tip. That's $100. So, well, not all the way to $100, but you know what I mean. But usually that's the way that I think about it in my head. Because each cocktail's, about $24, $25, which I know is a lot, totally. And this is specifically for Delilah's because I go there the most frequent. And I put myself in there. So 3 drinks, that's $75. That's where I'm at. And that's also a way that I keep a budget. You can obviously drink more because you're maybe not driving, which is quite nice. That's also a cool thing about traveling solo to Vegas is that you don't really need a car to get around here. Everything's quite close in proximity. And depending on whether you're going to the far north end of the strip or the far south end of the strip, everything is very doable by taxi, Uber, bus if you want. You can walk a lot of places, like especially if you're staying in center part of the strip, like the Bellagio. From the Bellagio, you have easy access to places like the Cosmopolitan, Planet Hollywood, Paris, Caesar's Palace, the Vanderplump Hotel. My mom always laughs at me because I say Vanderplump when it's Vanderpump, but whatever, you get it. But no, that probably is a good way to sort of segue into like where you should stay. I think the cool thing about when you travel alone, this also happens if you travel as a couple, is that you can usually just find a king bed. King beds are quite popular in Las Vegas and are probably going to be the most affordable rooms. This is sort of in general, just in terms of anywhere in the world. But lots of king rooms, which means typically it's a little bit more affordable for a lot of places, depending where you are. And with that being said, it depends on how much time you're going to be spending in the room. As a single person, you're probably not going to be spending that much time in the room. The only time I see people spending lots of time in rooms is if you're in places like the Cosmopolitan or places that have balconies or really great views. You might spend time in the room, but honestly, you're going to get bored at some point and you're going to want to travel to into the main part of the casino. So a hotel that I always really, really enjoy, and I think it's actually a very underrated hotel, is the Park MGM. Park MGM to me is really one of my favorite hotels for mid-tier budgets. And it has access to lots of places. From there, you can walk very easily to T-Mobile Arena. If there's a concert, you can walk over to New York, New York. It also has a bunch of stuff on the inside. Wonderful little casino, very affordable gaming inside of New York, New York. And then if you end up wanting to go towards the middle of the strip, you can walk. It's actually a nice little walk if you go from Park MGM to like Bellagio, for example. Little bit confusing because you have to pass by City Center, which has lots of ups and downs. But if you end up going towards the back where the pool is, there is the tram, which is the free tram that travels from Park MGM, the Crystal Shopping Mall, which also has a stop for the Aria, and then all the way to the Bellagio Hotel as well, which also has access to Vdara. But I mean, who stays at Vdara? Just my brother, because he's bougie and he doesn't, his wife likes to be around places that don't have smoking. But it is free, which is quite nice. And it's a very clean tram. It's much cleaner than I would say like the monorail. The monorail does off-put itself from other spots nicely because you do have to pay to get on it. And it's not like the bus where it's, as affordable for people who are, homeless essentially. Because like I rode on it. Although when you do ride on the monorail, I have to say it does show its age. You can see that it gets ridden quite a lot. So the tram is actually private because that is owned by MGM Resorts. Hence it stops at MGM properties. And it's free. So that is actually one of the really, really big positives of riding the tram. But I like Park MGM, and from there you can go to anywhere towards the middle of the strip. Also, what I like about it is that if you are coming for a concert, it is very, very walkable to T-Mobile Arena. T-Mobile Arena is a really fantastic place to watch live events. For example, a hockey game is very, very popular because that's obviously where the Golden Knights play. Golden Knights games can be pretty fun solo. I don't know how much I'm into traveling solo and going to concerts. I think it definitely depends how much you love that band. Also, depending if you're going to be doing floor seats. For some reason, people who do floor seats are very communal. For some reason, they want to be close to the action, obviously, but it tends to be very communal when you get down there. I don't do floor seats. I actually tried doing a concert solo. I ended up going to Ed Sheeran alone. Not my thing. I am actually very comfortable doing lots of things alone. Movie theaters, restaurants, bars, for the most part traveling. But man, going to see a concert alone was like almost the worst experience of my life. Because you want to sing to what's going on, you want to react to what's going on as well, and it was just not for me. That is not my thing. But I did end up going to see Hans Zimmer alone because I was able to find tickets, a single seat, which is also a great thing about traveling solo to Vegas, is that there are actually a lot of solo seats that you can find in resident shows, in residencies for singers. Single seats are usually the hardest ones to sell. So when it comes to showtime, those are the ones that usually drop down in price, especially if they're resale. If they're just, face value, they're not going to drop in price. But if they are resale, it is one of the easier tickets to get are the single tickets. For example, like Hans Zimmer when he came to Resorts World. I went to go see Hans Zimmer alone, and it was 3 hours. It was a long concert. There was even an intermission. And it was honestly the most fun I've ever had watching a concert. Well, that's kind of a lie. I really like some stuff at the Sphere. But for a straight up concert of I'm just there to experience the music, I loved it. So I guess it does vary on what the actual event is. I've also gone to the Smith Center. The Smith Center, which is our performing arts center for musicals and other shows as well, but I go there for musicals. And I've experienced the Smith Center alone, and I didn't have a problem with that. That was actually not bad because I've gone with people, and it was actually worse going with the person than it was actually just going alone. So there is sort of a stigma around people who go to concerts and stuff alone, which I think is, unfounded and not nice. But sometimes you got to do what you got to do, and that's what happens. But the cool thing about coming to Vegas solo is that if you do want to go see a concert, single tickets tend to be much more available than couples or groups of seats, and usually single tickets you're able to get availability. I would say when you do come to Vegas alone, you don't have to have as much of a plan. And this isn't to say you shouldn't plan. You should plan on being at some place at certain times every so often. You should say, hey, I want to go have dinner at this time, or I want to go to have dinner, at this place. Usually, just like anything else, earlier in the day is much easier to get into a bar. That's usually like first come, first serve time. And I usually like to go around, 7 o'clock. That's the time I like to get there. 8 o'clock, and they're right before 8 o'clock. Let's just, so 8 o'clock. So anytime like 7:30 or 7:45 at really popular restaurants, it is very hard to get a seat at a bar. The reason being is that everybody is there early before their reservation at 8 o'clock. So everybody is there having cocktails, having maybe like small appetizers before they go to their seat, their actual table. So the bar top seating is very tough to get a hold of at that time. So it's really good to go at either like 7 o'clock, 8:30, 8:45. Those times are good. 5:15, 5:30, it gets very busy at those times as well because everybody who couldn't get a reservation into the restaurant, they go early, usually right at opening, and then that's who kind of floods the zone in terms of the seats at the bar. Also, I would say a really fun thing about, going solo is that bartenders tend to be really cool with you if you are cool with them. Some of my favorite acquaintances are bartenders. And again, it's like, yeah, I do patronize those places, but I do go there quite frequently. I go back multiple times, and we're able to have conversations about cocktails and this sort of thing, where the city's going, more local talk. But when you're traveling alone, they tend to be very chill with you if you're chill with them. You just kind of find your spot at the end of the bar, have a fun cocktail. It's always good, especially if you are somebody who likes to try different cocktails, is to say, hey, what are you guys working on right now? I would love to try that. Which is great. So I know I've kind of gotten off of like giving you recommendations of where to go, but here we go now. I'll do it now for you guys. But I just wanted to kind of give you like where my brain is at on traveling solo to Vegas. Great places to go solo here. I really enjoy the Collins Bar at the Fontainebleau. I think they actually have some of the best cocktails there. It's also one of the best hotels to go to in general in terms of the standard of bartending, but I really love the Collins Bar. You can hang out, kind of watch people come in and out, which is really, really fun for me. I really like the Collins Bar, of course. Another really good one, I would always recommend going to Beer Park. Beer Park is phenomenal to just go, have a beer. You can watch the game. You can also get a view of the Strip, which is fantastic. Love going to the Beer Park, and they have great wings and great fries. So delicious. Oh my God, they're so good. But great place to go solo because they have a very large bar. They actually have 2 giant bars on the outside that really allow you to be able to, go up and sit down. They also have a nice ledge that actually overlooks the Strip and the Bellagio fountains, which is great just to sit there, have a drink, look out. It's fantastic. I would also say Bottled Blonde is really good. It depends on what you're going for, because if you are going for like a super like an NFL Sunday or a college football Saturday, they sometimes just are not with the TVs. It's really one of my pet peeves about this place. But it is a great place to hang out because you can hang out. People come in and out of there. It's a good place to sort of chill, watch the world go by, like I said, and it's really, really fun. I've also really enjoyed Jason Aldean's, if you like country music. Again, very big bars, 2 levels. I recommend the second level if you are going solo, because the second level, it's a lot more of a party atmosphere, not so much like food, and it feels more like a nightclub, but very easygoing. And it does get sometimes pretty busy, but you're usually able to find at least one seat at the bar, and you're able to walk up, have it, sit down, look out, listen to music, watch TV. It's not watch TV, but watch games is what I'm talking about. And beautiful bartenders, gotta say. From the male perspective, beautiful bartenders. But no, really enjoy Jason Aldean's sort of a single spot to go hang out at. Sports books are great. Like, it's really fun to go to a sports book. And if you are into sports, sit there and just, obviously this is single guy point of view, but just sit at a sports book, maybe have a beer, watch sports going on. Golf, it's really great when golf season's going on, especially if you're going on the weekends like Thursday through Sunday, where you're able to just sit, kind of look around. It's a really great place to spark up conversations with people that have, similar interests in terms of sports. So I really enjoy doing that. If you wanted to come and sort of sit, just look out. Really great bar at Caesar's Palace. If it's not a busy weekend, you're able to get a seat at the bar. They're a little bit weird about like playing the slot machines at the bar itself, because that's what they want. But I would say throw a 20 in, bed every so often, and then you usually get some free cocktails, which is nice. So I highly recommend that. How do I feel about Resorts World? Resorts World as a single spot. I think it's actually pretty good. I think it's a very large property where you can walk around, kind of explore on your own. You can go to the food court and walk around and look at the closed spaces. But they do have a beautiful bar on the very top floor. It's called Alley Star 66. God, I hate the name of this place, but really good place, really fantastic bartenders to make great cocktails, beautiful view. And then they also have really great places like the 8 Cigar Lounge. If you want to sit down, have a cigar, watch some TV. I actually talked to one of the managers of the 8 Cigar Lounge at Resorts World, and I noticed this the first time I went, was that they have like these scenes from movies, but they don't have the sound on because they have music going. And I'm like, oh, these are all banger scenes of movies. And they said, yeah, it's actually a pet project of the general manager that he wants us on a loop of just like the best scenes from movies where you don't have to actually hear, you just can watch it and you know what's going on. And I was like, that is my shit. I love that. Although cigar lounge is not my thing. I wish I could be into cigar lounges, but I have to say, if you want to spot celebrities in Las Vegas, go to 8 Cigar Lounge and you will probably find one. I have to say, cigar lounges, lots of rich dudes like to hang out in there, probably because nobody wants to hang out in a cigar lounge. But that's just one that I would say. But 8 Cigar Lounge in general, other than like the cigar smoke, is a really cool, like very like nighttime Vegas-y late night spot. It's really, really cool. So, not a cigar guy, gotta say. Not a cigar lounge guy is what I would have to say. But because you come out there smelling like a lot of cigar smoke, man. So 8 Cigar Lounge is great. Carver Steak, love Carver Steak. Beautiful bar to sit at, by yourself. And the reason I keep talking about sitting at bars when you're, solo, in Vegas solo, is that you can't really make a reservation for a single person in a restaurant. It's impossible. You go online, you try to book one person, it says not available. So you can always walk up and like try to book like on your own. But that's also a thing, is that I very rarely sit at an actual table alone. Because that feels weird. That feels weirder than sitting at a bar alone. But I've actually talked to a lot of women that are like, that they tell me they would rather sit at a dining table alone than sit at a bar top alone, which I just find interesting. I think it's just like the mentality that we have and maybe the stigmas around it. But I just think it's interesting that that's the way we kind of think. I also think there's quite a stigma around women traveling alone to Las Vegas. Although a lot of women travel to Vegas alone for business, which happens quite frequently, which sometimes sparks my most fun nights, because then you start talking to people that are here for work and they just want to talk to somebody else. And I have to say that I think women are a lot more open to talking to people, especially if they're here on business, because they're here and they have to do something. And I find that women tend to be very open when they're coming to Vegas and they want to have a cocktail and maybe speak with somebody. One time it was really cool that I was at Mayfair Supper Club, and this woman like was trying to buy me drinks, but not because she was like super interested in me. It was because she had a for her like report. What's what I'm looking for? What you need to claim on like her business expense, her travel expenses, is that it looked better if she was buying another drink for somebody else, because it could say that she was purchasing it for a client. So that's how she was able to get it written off. And I was like, that's actually smart. Pretty smart. And I had 3 cocktails, but it was that was a really fun kind of experience. But that's really cool. I can't really say what it's like traveling to Vegas as a woman. I really can't, because I'm a dude. So I'm not able to give you that perspective. But I do think traveling to Vegas alone, as a guy is, quite safe. I would say for women, it's also somewhat safe. You do have to stay away from certain areas. You have to be a little bit more aware of what's going on. I would say the big thing for men traveling alone, where should you not go? I don't want to tell you where you can't go, but I'm going to tell you some places that you're going to be targeted by prostitutes, because that's what happens when you're a single guy here for a convention, is if you go to places like the Wynn, if you go to like any center bar at the Wynn, you tend to find a lot of prostitutes. Just in general, like if you go like the Parasol Up bars, that's not what it's called anymore, but that's where it's at. Places like the Chandelier Bar, highly targeted. When you go into restaurants, it's not as frequent, but I mean, there's definitely been prostitutes at Delilah's that I've seen. And again, they don't say, "Hey, I'm a prostitute." It's more like you can kind of read the energy and read kind of what's going on. They usually only have one drink. They kind of scope it out and then see what's going on. And that's sort of like fishing. But that's definitely a place you have to be careful with, is like, it's a lot like, higher end spots like Delilah's alone, the Chandelier Bar alone, the center bar at Fountain Blue, where the Blue Bar is, the big chandelier. Got to be careful at that. That one is prostitute central, man. It's pretty crazy. Ladies, I would just say make sure you stay in safe parts of town. The Strip is pretty much very safe. Lots of police presence and security and that kind of thing. And then, of course, just watch your drinks where you're going. That's very, very important. Places that I don't like going solo in Vegas. I do not like going to local lounges alone. Because it's very cliquey. Like, that's not my thing. I'm very much like a lone wolf solo cat, just walking around. And when you get to places that are very cliquey, then you don't become part of that space. So I don't enjoy going to places like the Bel Air Lounge at the Durango, because again, lots of cliques, lots of people who work in real estate or the nightlife industry, and that's where they hang out at. I don't want to be part of that vibe. I just don't like those people sometimes. But I wouldn't say I don't like them. It's just like you're not part of the group, and that's sort of how that works. Other places like the barbershop at the Cosmopolitan, I always have a great time when I go with other people. I've been there once or twice alone, and it is not the same. It is not a fun time alone there, because you can't really talk to anybody. You're not going to really connect with anybody without being, a little bit more inebriated. But I would say that's more of a group thing for sure, is the barbershop, and people love to go there. Instead of that, I would definitely recommend that you go to the Ghost Donkey. Is really fun. It's a really fun speakeasy. And I would also recommend the Ski Lodge is also good. If you do want a good speakeasy for like a solo person, it's funny because like there's not that many really good ones, to be honest. What I really wanted to say was a good speakeasy to go as a group would be Easy Speakeasy, which is inside of the Aria Hotel. Because there's not a place to really stand if you're a solo person. Like, you can stand at the bar. It's a very tiny bar with a pillar in the middle. But it's definitely a place you want to go as a group, because then you can purchase, a table and then, be at the table for a little while. That is a much more group idea than it is like a single person idea. So just my 2 cents on that. So with that being said, that's our solo pod for today. Really appreciate you guys sticking with us. Hopefully you guys enjoy the Super Bowl coming up this weekend. Unless you listened to this in the past, then you already know who won. But hopefully you guys enjoy this. And again, you can listen to this anytime. A lot of the places I gave out are open, so hopefully you guys can go check those out. But again, if you're coming to Las Vegas, really appreciate you guys, taking your time to listen to the podcast. I really, I say it again, appreciate you guys following us along the entire way. So follow us, Concierge Confidential _LV on Instagram, and at Keys to Vegas on TikTok. And if you see me out in town on your trip to Las Vegas, come up and say hello. But remember, keep it confidential.